Hi and welcome to SCW here on YouTube.com. Thank you for choosing the channel and choosing the video. Please subscribe right now. Leave any comments in the comments section. Please like and share the video as well. It's time to have your say because it's time for the Q&A, answering your questions in the wrestling community. If you'd like to get involved with the next Q&A here on SCW, then leave a hashtag AskSCW. You can drop a comment here on YouTube or you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram or Facebook. All should be coming up on your screen right about now. Going to be talking about WWE, AEW, Impact Wrestling and much more, including Rhea Ripley potentially on the main roster, what will happen with the contract situation of Taya Valkyrie and Ethan Page, and what are my top 3 Undertaker matches of all time, all coming up for you during this Q&A. So without further ado, let's get straight into it, shall we? Let's go with our first question this week. And that question comes from Taya World Order saying, Ethan Page just filmed the last Impact tapings of 2020. He and Taya Valkyrie are no longer under contract. Are both of them worth throwing lots of money to keep, or will they end up in AEW or WWE? What would you prefer and why? This is a massive question, this one, and one I'm really in favour of getting because Ethan Page is one of my favourite wrestlers in everywhere in pro wrestling right now. So for me, I think his money, I think he's worth throwing lots of money at. And I would say the same for Impact Wrestling for Taya Valkyrie as well. I think both are critical for what Impact Wrestling are trying to do right now because they've brought in a lot of ex-WWE talent, but at the same time, they've lost a lot of talent as well. If you look at the Rascals, look to be leaving now. With, of course, Kylie Ray is no longer a professional wrestler. We look back in earlier the year, of course, Tessa Blanchard was fired from the company. So a lot of big names they had are no longer with the company. And you look at perhaps some of the people they've brought in. Yes, we've got some big names, but people as well are attracted to some of the names that they will find in and amongst Impact Wrestling. Impact are very good at taking people from other promotions or indie stars and making them into something where they go on to bigger and better things. You've only got to look at WWE right now, of course, with some of the TNA originals, AJ Styles, of course, Samoa Joe being another one there, which have been, massive names within WWE, and they started their, pretty much their careers where they've become household names in Impact Wrestling, or TNA if we want for the better term. So for me, I think that these are worth throwing money at. If you look at Taya Valkyrie, especially for the Knockouts division, the Knockouts division is seen as one of the best women's divisions in all of pro wrestling. And I mentioned that the Impacts have lost Tessa Blanchard, they've lost Kylie Ray. To lose Taya as well, all in the span of 6 months, people will start questioning if it's still the best women's division going in pro wrestling right now. So for me, to keep her is a big deal. I think it's worth throwing the money at. Ethan Page, again, as I say, the North are my favourite tag team in pro wrestling right now. I can see them doing massive things throughout their careers. Do I want them to stay in Impact Wrestling? Yeah, I kind of do. I think that they've made a good, solid foundation Impact. Perhaps not all the teams in the world to work with, but they've got a solid tag team division. I could see perhaps with 1 or 2 more tag team additions. I mean, we've seen Heath, of course, unfortunately injured at the moment, but him and Rhino would make an interesting match with the North. If maybe the Authors of Pain were to be brought in as well, that would be an interesting match with the North also. So there's lots of different dimensions that you could take with the North. And I must admit, I did have my fear and suspicions because there were some reports going that AEW were interested in Ethan Page back towards the end of the summer. But of course, when they became tag team champions at Bound for Glory, of course, the North once again, that made me believe that maybe Ethan Page was sticking around and maybe they get a nice lengthy reign once again as tag team champions. I felt they dropped the belts initially because of those reports and the contract hadn't been signed. But when I saw that they lost the belts then at Turning Point, my initial fears were that perhaps just maybe Ethan Page may be moving on. I could see why they would be wanted by other companies. There's certainly a lot of vested interest in why other companies would want to take them in. We'll start with Ethan Page. I mean, of course, Josh Alexander is still under contract for now with Impact, but I guess his contract maybe comes out around Easter time, maybe, because, I mean, I think that's when he came in. If it was a 2-year deal, perhaps maybe that would be the scenario. The North would be very much welcome in any tag team division. AEW is the land of tag team wrestling. If you want, they have every, one of the, for a better term, top tag teams right now with the Young Bucks, FTR. There's a lot of dream matches that could be there, and it would be, a tempter for someone like Ethan Page to want to be tested in that environment. Can they be, a bigger fish in that pond? And with NXT as well, you look at it, I mean, their tag team division right now is very lackluster, in my opinion. I think that if the North were to be there, say Josh Alexander was to leave as well, that would really add some depth to that tag team division. There was a rumour that the Rascals, they've been offered contracts by WWE also. That was, of course, by Wrestle Talk. That was brought out last week at some point. So, I mean, those two teams would really add some depth to that tag team division on NXT and would really strengthen Wednesday nights. Such an innovative tag team, the North, and I just love the fact that they have those special double team maneuvers that no other team seems to have even thought of doing. They're so creative in what they do, and I think they were well deserved being in the PWI's top tag teams of this year. We'll go to Taya Valkyrie, and I can see why she would be wanted elsewhere. AEW, the women's division is the place that needs improving, and Taya Valkyrie would be, such an asset to that division. She would add so much. I could see her being the top dog in AEW if she was to be there in the women's division. If she was to go with WWE, she would be with her husband, and I could see her initially skipping NXT. I could see her on Raw with her husband, and to be honest, I mean, that dynamic would be really good for Miz and Morrison, I think, to have Taya in their corner. Even if the Miz and Morrison were to break away and we got, John Morrison like a Johnny Mundo, a Johnny Impact with Taya. I mean, that would be pretty cool. I mean, John could also play manager role for when she's going for the championship. She can do it for him, when he's going for mid-card titles. I think that as a dynamic, it could really, really work. If you look at The Miz in WWE 2016-17, that time that he had Maurice by his side was probably some of the strongest work that The Miz did. I could see that same dynamic for Morrison and Taya in WWE. So I could see why there would be appeal for multiple companies to come in for these talents. Do I want them to stay in Impact Wrestling? Yeah, of course I do. I really enjoy Impact. I'm a big Impact fan, and I don't like seeing all the best talent still going from Impact to other places. I would like to see those people, evolve themselves into top players there, to see other people being brought in and to build the Impact brand. That's what I would like to see as a first choice. But of course, I am also a pro wrestling fan overall, and I do like all the companies. So if they were to land in other destinations, like I say, there are some pros to see where the other people would go. If Ty was in AEW, she could be the top female there. She could be, the spearhead for what's needed for that women's division. As I say, with Raw, I quite like the idea of her and John Morrison, being together as that tandem there. The North, they'll be great wherever they are. So it all is kind of one of those, time will tell of what will happen. We'll have to wait and see. But if I had a first choice, I would like them to stick around because, Taya, at the moment with the Who Shot Bravo storyline, she could heavily still be involved with that. You could argue maybe it rules her out of the tag team championship, the Knockouts tag team championships as well. So that would be a shame also. I think her and Rosemary could have a good partnership, or certainly a good rivalry that could come out the other side of it. So there's lots of things that could come as a result if they were to stay, but if it's not to be, it's not to be. But I guess we'll have to wait and see what will happen. We will learn more over the coming weeks. Next question is coming from the North R Champs again, which I believe was a first-time asker. Thank you for your question. Asking, who in your opinion is going to win the Knockouts Tag Team titles at Hard to Kill in January? My pick is Deonna Purrazzo and Kimberly, and will surprise everybody and win the tournament. Great shout. I really like your suggestion there. And I must admit, up until Turning Point, I had the exact same prediction. But I thought with Deonna Purrazzo, when she lost the championship, of course, to Su Yung at Bound for Glory, this would keep her relevant. She'd have something to do. She's got this partnership with Kimberly going on. I thought that maybe they would go and win the tag team championships. But of course, Deonna Purrazzo has now won the Knockouts championship back. Does she need to become a double champion when we look at the rest of the Knockouts division? For me, I see that there's some ready-made teams there, and I see that there's a lot of potential with this division. So I'm going to go against that. What I would say instead is two things. The first one, for Deonna Purrazzo and Kimberly, I predict a breakup instead. I think they're going to go into this tournament. Kimberly is going to muck something up somewhere. Deonna Purrazzo is going to blame her for not being a double champion, and that will lead to them two having a singles match at Hard to Kill instead. For the actual winners of the tournament, I'm going for Havoc and the Ava because for me, I don't see them as the favourites in this tournament. I also see that they have an easy bracket compared to a lot of people. They've already won their first round match. I can see them definitely getting to the final. And if I look at that bottom end of the table there, when we look at that, we've got Kiera Hogan, Tasha Steelz, arguably the favourites in this tournament. They're not shoo-ins to get to the final when you've got Deonna Purrazzo, Kimberly, as well as Taya and Rosemary in this. But there are some counteractions in this, which makes you feel like that this could be, better in favour for Kiera Hogan or Tasha Steelz or for Havoc and the Ava. I'm going for Havoc and the Ava because, as I say, they're not the favourites judging by commentary on this, and I think that they would make great tag team champions. They've got good chemistry, and yeah, that for me is my pick right now. But if you want to see a full in-depth video of what I think about this, I have it on the channel already. Who will win the Knockouts Tag Team Championships? I go through every bracket of the tournament, break everything down, and how I think the whole thing will go from start to finish. So if you haven't seen it, do recommend to go and check it out at the end of this video. Next question is coming from Austin Whitley, asking, in the honour of the Dead Man's 30th anniversary, what are your top 3 Taker matches? Well, yeah, we've got 30 years to play with here, so, I mean, there's so many great Undertaker matches over the years, so it's very difficult to narrow it down just to 3, and I'm sure I've left some absolute classics out of there, but I'm going to go with my personal top 3 here for you, and 2 of my top 3 are in my top 3 matches of all time, so that goes to show how highly I rate The Undertaker, and I mean, I will always, to the day I die, will remember King of the Ring 1998, the Hell in a Cell match with Mankind, purely not for a technical masterclass, a 5-star classic, but as a spectacle, something that stays in your mind for the rest of time. I will never forget Mick Foley being thrown off the top of that cell and being thrown through it for the first time. I think, you know, I was in my teens, I had seen nothing like it before. It was absolute carnage, and I genuinely feared, you know, for Mankind's life at that time. And for me, it is in one of my top matches of all time, purely because both of them came out the other side okay, and also just because of the fact it's such a memorable match. I will never ever forget it. My favourite ever WrestleMania match, we'll get the second shout here, End of an Era, WrestleMania 28, Hell in a Cell, Undertaker versus Triple H with Shawn Michaels as the guest referee. For me, this storytelling done to perfection. This went on for like half an hour, this beautiful Hell in a Cell match. The fact that Shawn Michaels, as his role as referee, conflicted if he wants the streak to remain alive or not, was just a beautiful masterstroke in storytelling. And for me, it's my favourite Mania match of all time, and for me it's a true spectacle, and it definitely has to be in the top 3. Last but not least, I can't leave out WrestleMania 25, can I? I mean, the match with Shawn Michaels, the initial one which started that streak to End of an Era, Shawn Michaels and Taker, that was just a perfection of a match, and it definitely is a lot of people's favourite match of all time, and a lot of people's opinions is the best WrestleMania match of all time. I must admit that when I first seen this match, I knew the result beforehand. I never had a chance to watch WrestleMania 25 the exact time that it came out, so I got to watch this match just a little bit later, but it still lived up to the hype and expectation that would have been thrown on all the praise had been thrown on this match. So for me, that still is in there as well. So that would be the top 3 that I have to pick. But there's many great opponents over the years. I mean, you look at the storytelling with the matches that led to Kane. I believe Kurt Angle, No Way Out 2006 deserves a mention. There's so many classic matches. I mean, even the ladder match with Jeff Hardy back in, I believe it was 2002 on Raw. So there's so many you could go with, but I'm happy with my top 3. But definitely like to know your top 3 in the comments below. Please let me know in the comments right now. Dan the Man Williams with our next question now, Mr. DWE, asking, when do you think is the best time for The Miz to cash in his Money in the Bank? And if you booked, what event would you have him cash in? And would you have him win the match? It's a great question, this one, and I mean, Survivor Series, I made the prediction, I've made the call that Miz would actually cash in his Money in the Bank during the match with Drew McIntyre and Roman Reigns. My reasoning for that is because of the fact that I felt he could cash in the briefcase, and this would be a way that he could take the fall, and he would actually then that way protect Drew and Reigns in what is seen as the big dream match here at Survivor Series. I don't want to see either champion be weakened here, and I think that this match could or should be done at WrestleMania. So that's my personal feeling with it. And with The Miz cashing at that point as well, it seemed like a golden opportunity for him because he could go for both championships at the same time, very much like Seth Rollins went and won the WWE Championship back at WrestleMania 31. We've not seen anything like that since, so I thought that this would be a great opportunity for that to happen. But of course, by the time you're watching this has either happened or not happened, and let's have a different scenario should that be the case. And I think if The Miz was to win the championship, his best time to do it is in the summer, somewhere between May and January. I like the WrestleMania to have the biggest matches possible, and no disrespects to The Miz, the way he's been booked over recent years, he's improved. Now he's got the Money in the Bank briefcase. He shouldn't be headlining another WrestleMania as champion, in my opinion. So I think he fits very well for a storyline or fantasy booking storyline I've done, which we've never seen with the Money in the Bank briefcase. The Miz is an opportunist. He's someone that wants to cash in when the champion is weakened. He's not going to sort of call his shot and then do it 1 week, 2 weeks, a pay-per-view in advance. Miz will see your champion weakened, he'll cash in and he'll win the belt that way. For me, personally, I think that a great thing for The Miz to do will be to continue trying to cash in and just not find the right opportunity, and to the point where the time is going to run out. Miz has until Money in the Bank next year to cash that briefcase in, and we've never seen a storyline where someone is running out of weeks, because all of a sudden the advantage they have as the champion with the briefcase, we should say, they don't have that advantage anymore. The more the time ticks, the more the champion is expecting that cash in to take place. They are waiting for it. They are prepared that that has to happen in the next month. So the one as actually has the briefcase becomes almost the more vulnerable of the two, and I think that that makes a very gripping storyline, something we haven't seen yet in WWE. I believe the longest to this point is Carmella, which was just after WrestleMania time. I think she's the longest to hold the briefcase. The Miz, I'd like to see break it, although technically he wouldn't have had the briefcase as of long. But of course, since the Money in the Bank ladder match, it would be the longest in history if it went to the full calendar year, perhaps cashing in at Money in the Bank because he is forced to rather than he is wanting to. And I think that that would be a cool storyline. Would I have him win the match? I think it depends who the champion is at the time. I'd like to see The Miz up and around near the main event area. And of course, if we are going to wait another 4 or 5 months for him to cash it in, you've got a great time to build him in that time as well. So I wouldn't be against it if The Miz was booked like a main eventer. It's certainly gone in the right baby steps direction in recent weeks on Raw, but I want to see that momentum continue for The Miz if he was to win the championship again. Noob and Co with 3 questions for us this week, and the first one, will there be any surprising heel and face turns at Survivor Series? Question 2, will Rhea Ripley be going to Raw or SmackDown? And question 3, is Asuka turning heel at Survivor Series after refusing to save Sasha Banks from Carmella on SmackDown? Great questions there for you. Starting with the surprising heel or face turns, I don't see much happening at Survivor Series, but certainly one that I thought was in my predictions that I felt could happen. I felt Sheamus could turn on Drew McIntyre. Now, already a face and heel dynamic, so it's not so much a heel turn, but it certainly would establish that program going forward, because it's quite clear we're definitely going to get Drew McIntyre versus Sheamus at some point. The question is when, and they're building this up very nicely. It's one of my favourite parts of Monday Night Raw right now, but it certainly would be interesting because it would be a way to protect Drew McIntyre in a defeat to Roman Reigns if he was cost the match. And of course, there's many different ways this could happen. I mean, The Fiend could get involved, Randy Orton, The Miz. There's different variables we could go here. But Sheamus, certainly we're building towards a program there. I would be up for Sheamus to costing Drew McIntyre at the Survivor Series. As for Rhea Ripley, I think she's main roster bound personally. When it will be, we'll have to wait and see, but I could see her on SmackDown. I could even see her on Raw, to be honest. There has been a few rumours around that she could be around from tonight at the Survivor Series. I hope it's put off to the Royal Rumble. I could really see her as the Royal Rumble winner, personally, going forward, because I think she was supposed to have that WrestleMania match, that WrestleMania moment. And although she got a WrestleMania match, she didn't get the moment she was supposed to get. I could see WWE giving her a big match at WrestleMania, whether it be a return match against Charlotte Flair, perhaps for the Raw Women's Championship, dare I say it, as a way of trying to get Rhea Ripley as a top superstar on Raw. Or potentially, she could go there against the likes of Sasha Banks or Bayley on SmackDown, particularly 2 matches I'd be really excited to see. It certainly is lots of potentials there, and I do think that Rhea Ripley will be on the main roster, mainly because I just don't know what there's left for her to do in NXT. She had, a women's championship run, with the NXT championship, and she's also fought everyone there is to fight, and she had a big rematch this week where if she was going to stay on NXT, she needed to win that belt this week, and it wasn't a takeover match either, which is interesting. Makes you wonder if she will turn up at Survivor Series this evening, but the only thing I could see her left to do, if she was to do anything, I could see her as part of War Games, because Shotzi Blackheart needs another member. It looks like she'll have Ember Moon and Toni Storm in her ranks. If Io Shirai doesn't have an opponent, maybe Io could be in the War Games match as well. But Rhea Ripley is meant to be good friends with Shotzi Blackheart, so that could be a good way to go off into the sunset. Maybe perhaps win the War Games match, and then go to Raw SmackDown the following week. But we'll have to wait and see what will happen. But certainly, yes, I can see Rhea Ripley on the main roster. I did predict it in the draft when we had that going on. I'm surprised that she's not been called up sooner. She's definitely a star in the making. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see what happens. But I definitely think it's something that will happen in the foreseeable future. As for Asuka, she was a bit of a spare part, wasn't she, on SmackDown? They're just kind of watching what was going on. I felt the whole program, though, with Asuka and Sasha on SmackDown was a bit confusing. Sasha didn't know if she wanted to be the babyface or the heel going into this match. I hope that it's face versus face this evening. I don't really want to see a heel turn at this point. What I would say, though, for Asuka is she needs something. I'm getting a little bit tired of her character. I find that the goofiness and that it worked at the start of the pandemic when we had these empty arena shows. I felt that it certainly was something that was a bit organic. It was something that made her stand out a bit. But I feel a lot of stuff we're seeing recently is a bit more forced, and I find it less comical, if I'm being brutally honest. And that's not a good look when you're starting to do comedies and you're one of the major champions, and that stuff's not connecting. And I'm sure perhaps it is connecting with other people, but it's just not connecting with me personally. I would love to see the return of the Asuka character we had in NXT. Not necessarily undefeated. We know that Asuka is no longer undefeated, but someone that is beating everybody and getting more and more cocky and more with belief that she will just has to turn up as it goes along. I like that Asuka that we had, which was a slightly devilish, heelish Asuka towards the end of NXT. I want to see that Asuka come back because she got some great matches, and just you wanted to see someone beat her for that NXT Women's Championship. Of course, the dynamic was different. She was undefeated then, but you still could make a good program out of it on Raw. I think it would be interesting. When she was a heel in the Kabuki Warriors, I really liked that dynamic of the character as well. So I want to see Asuka kind of go back to that heel roots, but I don't see it happening in the foreseeable future. I think that she has a ready-made spot currently in WWE, and although she's not been currently booked in strong programs since SummerSlam, I think now that Survivor Series is about to get out of the way, there's so many challenges that could go against her. We've got Alexa Bliss, Nikki Cross, Peyton Royce, Lacey Evans, Lana, Nia Jax, Shayna Baszler. We've got a whole roster of fresh matches here for Asuka. I don't see anything changing for the foreseeable future. Next question coming from Damo Craig asking, is Gargano's time to go to the main roster past him? And has Triple H hindered him by having him in NXT longer than he should be? It's a very interesting question, this one. For me, Johnny Gargano, he's one of those stars that I believe has always wanted to remain in NXT. I don't think he's wanted to go to Raw or SmackDown. There was that brief time where both DIY, him and Ciampa, were put to Raw for that brief appearance, and I think they might have performed on SmackDown as well before Ciampa got the injury. But they both went back to NXT, and they both stayed in NXT, and I think they both want to be there. Ciampa is another one, along with Johnny Gargano, that you could turn around and say, well, has that time passed? Same with the Undisputed Era. I think a lot of them want to stay in NXT and build that brand. But the argument comes then, does that take away from what NXT's identity is as a developmental brand rather than being an established brand? And I think that's the big question which comes with this, because if it's an established brand that has developmental guys in it and then, have guys to work with that stay like Johnny Gargano, Tommaso Ciampa, the Undisputed Era, it's perfectly fine. But if it's a developmental, then yeah, the time has passed him and he should have gone long ago. In my opinion, I'm a fan of Johnny Gargano. Is he the same Johnny Gargano as 2 years ago in storytime booking? Well, no, because, NXT only goes so far as a glass ceiling. You can go to the NXT Championship, you can be in the main event for a certain period of time, but if he was in every main event in NXT, you'd say, well, other people are not getting an opportunity. So there is that sort of counteraction as well. Johnny Gargano is someone like a Daniel Bryan, like an AJ Styles. He can be placed anywhere in and amongst NXT and he doesn't get lost. He can be in the North American Championship picture. He can be in the World Title picture. It fits. It's Johnny Gargano. He's been there and done it. He is Mr. NXT. Is it still time for him to go to the main roster? Of course it is. Why not? He could always go there. I could see him in the mid-card at best, though, and I think that's probably one of the reasons why I think he would be so reluctant to go up there, because so many NXT talents go to Raw and SmackDown and get misused. And I think if Gargano was to get there, there's some dream matches waiting. Seth Rollins and, AJ Styles, Daniel Bryan. Please, Daniel Bryan in a 60-minute Iron Man match would be freaking epic. But, you look at it and say, I think that's where Gargano gets. I don't see him getting to that upper end of the ladder where he gets towards the championship picture. So, once you get up there, there's not much place for you to go once you get to the mid-card. I think he could get lost in the shuffle. So, it depends if people feel he's lost now in the shuffle in NXT. But in my opinion, I feel the heel turn has worked. I love his, whiny character that he's got at the moment, and I do think he's doing good work in NXT. I still would like to see him on Raw or SmackDown one day against some of those dream opponents, but I don't think there's a rush to get him there, and I don't think he's been hindered either. I think that Gargano, he's a safe pair of hands. He's someone that's very well trusted, and yeah, he does great work in my opinion. Is the momentum still there that's there from a couple of years ago? No, it's not, but could it be built again? Of course it could. There's no reason why it couldn't. Next question comes from Renier Porter. How would you book Adam Cole if he came up from the third brand? Because he's probably going to become a lower mid-carder. Well, this is sort of similar to what we just spoke about in the last question with Johnny Gargano. I mean, if he was to come up and he wasn't booked to be a main eventer, the glass ceiling only goes so far, and all of a sudden it feels like another failed NXT call-up. And with these guys, there's so much potential and hype around them, but they are smaller guys in stature. So for me, if it was Adam Cole, he has to be called up a part of the Undisputed Era, in my opinion. I wouldn't have him up as a singles superstar. I think the UE is great branding with them as a stable, strength in numbers. We have ready-made feuds if you take them to Raw with the Hurt Business, Retribution. There's stuff to do with them, and I think that it could work really well. Adam Cole also could have some great dream matches with the likes of AJ Styles. We've already seen him and Daniel Bryan once, but I'd be up for seeing it again. I think Seth Rollins already faced as well once, but I mean, that was with a false finish back then also. There's lots of things you can do with Adam Cole if he was brought to the main roster, but for me, a part of the UE is the way to go. If he wasn't a part of the UE and this stable breaks up and you have to do it a different way, then the only other way would be to have the 3 ex-members of the Bullet Club as one stable together, the 3 ex-leaders, I should say, that we have within WWE of AJ Styles, Finn Balor, and Adam Cole. If them 3 were to form a stable in some form and make their own form of Bullet Club, I think that would be pretty badass. I'd like to see that as a way to do it. And again, you've got natural, ready, stabled feuds. I like the idea of Raw being a stable, faction-based show where SmackDown is more based more around the single stars and tag teams. We've got something that differentiates both shows. So to have another stable on Raw for me would be quite cool. But if you were to put them on SmackDown, I mean, maybe they're the only stable in town. Maybe they are the ones that, they rule everything because of the fact they have no one to, go against them. Maybe the Tribal Chief then has a reason to build a stable. He's, of course, got Jey Uso. Maybe needs Jimmy. He builds 1 or 2 more, and you've got another stable warfare going on SmackDown. So there's lots of different things you could do with Adam Cole. For me, the most important thing, like Johnny Gargano, as we said in the last question, if they're going to go up, they need a purpose, they need a storyline, they need reason to be there. Otherwise, they might as well stay in NXT because they're doing great things. They're still doing regular takeover appearances, putting on classic matches. They won't get the same time and the same appreciation on Raw or SmackDown. So if they're going to go up, they need to be assured that they've got a reason to be there and they're not going to be that lower mid-carder that we fear that they could be. We don't want failed NXT call-ups. Next question has come from Mike, Italian Habs Mike, and he's asking 2 questions. He says, number 1, do you see a scenario at War Games where either Bobby Fish or Roderick Strong is taken out before the match and Finn Balor takes their place considering what happened on NXT? Of course, Finn Balor actually bringing back the Undisputed Era there when, of course, Pat McAfee and the brand actually did confront him. And, of course, question 2, since War Games has returned, what has been the best one to date? Which is a great question as well there. So let's start with the first one. Pat McAfee has been taking out members of the UE, to the point where they were all out at one point. It wouldn't surprise me if they were to try and take members out again, and it would lead to this. I think it's a great point that you make. It certainly would give reason, because why would Finn Balor bring the UE back? Are they tight all of a sudden? I'm not quite sure what happened there, but one thing that could link them together could be respect between Finn Balor and, of course, Kyle O'Reilly after their epic match that they had for the NXT Championship at the last takeover. I think another thing depends as well if Finn Balor is coming back into action. If he has a number 1 contender that could be going to face him at the next takeover, that would also rule that idea out. But certainly is something that could be under consideration, and it's not something to rule out at this point. I think it's a great idea that you have put forth if NXT wanted to go down that avenue. As for best one up to now from War Games since it's returned, it's very, very difficult. There's been some great War Games matches, but I must admit, for me, the best one I've seen has to be the Women's War Games last year, because for me, I was on the edge of my seat with the way that was booked. It was the kick off that takeover, the way that Dakota Kai turned on, Tegan Nox at that point, for me, that felt such a big deal at that point, and it really established the character of Dakota Kai as a heel, Tegan Nox as this, babyface that had been turned on. For me, it felt like that could have been Gargano and Ciampa-esque, the way that was done. It's a shame that the rivalry afterwards didn't really culminate in the same sort of ways, where it was main event and takeovers and having that, where it took both of them to the next level. But it certainly established both of them and did move them up the pecking order. For me, was a really good storyline in and amongst what was going on outside of the ring as well as inside of War Games. And the fact then it was 4-on-2 really put a different dynamic completely on what we saw on that cage. So for me, that is the one that takes it. I think that was the best one up to now. For the men's one, I think that I wouldn't have gone with last year's, but I would go with the year before. I mean, of course, Undisputed Era in every single year, but seeing Ricochet doing that, goodness gracious, it was like 630 off the top of the War Games, landed on about 12 guys. Literally, for me, that was a standout point, and that was a really, really good War Games match. So for the men, that one would take it for me. But I think it's my overall favourite. I have to go with the ladies last year. I think they absolutely stole the show with that one. Dylan Ketchum with our next question for us now, and it's kind of rolling me. Should we get a match between Pac and Eddie Kingston to see who aligns with the Lucha Bros? It's an interesting dynamic, this one, and certainly something I wouldn't be against. The only thing I would say, though, is that the Lucha Brothers do feel like they have already made their allegiances clear. Eddie Kingston had already seemed to want to get rid of the dead weight, which was Rey Fenix. Penta, of course, actually made his choice, it felt, last week, where he's going to stick, and it was going to be Death Triangle reunited. I personally, as a storyline, I would have liked to have seen Penta had a decision to make for 2 or 3 weeks. I'd have liked to, maybe up till winter is coming, where Eddie Kingston's still in his ear, maybe saying, look, we're best friends, you should be with us, not with Death Triangle, and give that conflicting idea for Penta which way he was going to go, and then he stayed with Death Triangle at that point onwards, I think would have been the right way to go. I think instead we will definitely get Pac against Eddie Kingston, but I don't think we're going to get something on the line like that. Certainly not going to be like Dominic on the line, like we got back in 2005 for Rey Mysterio and Eddie Guerrero. But I do think we've got some great matches coming ahead though with this. I think that Pac, of course, Lucha Bros, we could get Butcher and the Blade Kingston, could be 6-man action, lots of variable singles matches. I think that there's a lot of fun times ahead with this, and I'm really looking forward as well to Penta versus Kingston when it comes around. Last question this week coming from Chloe Price. Boy, tricky question time, you're not lying with this one. Who does the best DDT besides Jake Roberts? Very difficult question. I mean, the sharp impact that you used to get from the DDT from Jake Roberts was electric, especially in the 80s. You would see literally the crowds just erupt when that happened, and it was such a special DDT. So it's very hard to pick since, and there's lots of different people who have done great DDTs. I do enjoy Alexa Bliss's DDT. I think that it always used to suit her character very well. Tommy Dreamer was another one, did a great one. There's different variations of DDTs. I used to love Gangrel's back in the day, Edge's as well, with that sort of, inverted one where they kind of lift the superstar off the ground. Used to be pretty cool. But as an impact move, like we've always had it, I really do enjoy Raven's. Raven was just a unique superstar back in the 90s. His character just stood out, and you just got a similar feeling when that DDT hit, where the place would just erupt. Whether it was ECW, WCW, or WWE, it was always a special feeling when you saw that, and Raven was so special as a character, as I say, and just to hit that DDT was a special. It complemented him so much. So to give an answer to that, there's many different answers I could give, but my favourite personally outside of Jake Roberts was always Raven. But that's everything this week anyway here on AskSCW. Thank you so much for everyone to put your questions in. As always, really grateful for them. If you did like the video, please give it a thumb up, maybe subscribe, hit the bell for notifications as well. Of course, you can be notified when each and every video is released here. If you are watching this before Survivor Series has started, go and check those predictions out. There's still time. There's a couple of videos there for you to go and check out. And of course, like I say, Impact Wrestling, who will be the Knockouts Tag Team Champions? As I say, I've given my answer earlier in the video, but maybe you want a breakdown of how I think the whole tournament will play out and what will go on therefore after. It certainly is a video worth checking out. Be more videos coming out through the week as well, so make sure to stick around here for SCW, and hope you guys have a great evening as well. Thank you for watching. Take care. I'll see you guys next time.